We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
I am very happy to be here with all of you. Happy Sunday. And as Sina said, my name is Reverend Michele Hojnacki. This is my second inspirational teaching in the sanctuary. And my message today is on divine selfishness. Our purpose. We are an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. Our core value, I chose core value number 3. We accept one true self, which is our one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the beliefs in the individual self as who we are. We have several announcements this morning. Rhoda, would you please? Sina, would you please play our opening song, which is Believe in You by Amanda Marshall. That beautiful come to discover all that God is. Amen. This morning's inspirational reading is The Path of Unconditional Happiness by Michael Singer. It comes from his book, The Untethered Soul. And Diane Denomme has graciously agreed to be the reader this morning. Thank you, Diane.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here, and thank you, Michele, for inviting me. The path of unconditional happiness. The highest spiritual path is life itself. If you know how to live daily life, it all becomes a liberating experience. But first, you have to approach life properly, or it can be very confusing. To begin with, you have to realize that you really only have one choice in this life, and it's not about your career, whom you want to marry, or whether you want to seek God. People tend to burden themselves with so many choices, but in the end, you can throw it all away and just make one basic underlying decision. Do you want to be happy, or do you not want to be happy? It's really that simple. Once you make that choice, your path through life becomes totally clear. Most people don't dare give themselves that choice because they think it's not under their control. Someone might say, well, of course I want to be happy, but my wife left me. In other words, they want to be happy, but not if their wife leaves them. But that wasn't the question. The real question is very simply, do you want to be happy or not? If you keep it that simple, you will see that it really is under your control. It's just that you have a deep-seated set of preferences that gets in the way. Let's say you've been lost and without food for days, and you finally find your way to a house. You can hardly make it to the doorstep, but you manage to pull yourself up and knock on the door. Somebody opens the door, looks at you and says, oh my God, you poor thing. Do you want something to eat? What would you like? Now, the truth is, you really don't care what they give you. You don't even want to think about it. You just utter the word food. And because you really mean it, when you say it, when you say you need food, it no longer has anything to do with your mental preferences. The same goes for the question about happiness. The question is simply, do you want to be happy? If the answer is really yes, then say it without qualifying it. After all, what the question really means is, do you want to be happy from this point forward for the rest of your life? regardless of what happens? Now, if you say yes, it might happen that your wife leaves you, or your husband dies, or the stock market crashes, or your car breaks down on an open highway at night. Those things might happen between now and the end of your life. But if you want to walk the highest spiritual path, then when you answer yes to that simple question, you must really mean it. There are ifs and ands and buts about it. It's not a question of whether your happiness is under your control. Of course, it's under your control. It's just that you really don't really mean it when you say you're willing to stay happy. You want to qualify it. You want to say that as long as this doesn't happen, or as long as that does happen, then you're willing to be happy. That's why it seems like it is out of your control. Any condition you create will limit your happiness. You simply aren't going to be able to control things and keep them the way you want them. You have to give an unconditional answer. If you decide that you're going to be happy from now on, for the rest of your life, you will not only be happy, you will become enlightened. Unconditional happiness is the highest technique there is. You don't have to learn Sanskrit or read any scriptures. You don't have to renounce the world. You just have to really mean it when you say that you choose to be happy. And you have to mean it regardless of what happens. This is truly a spiritual path, and it is as direct and sure a path to awakening as could possibly exist. Once you decide you want to be unconditionally happy, something inevitably will happen that challenges you. This test of your commitment is exactly what stimulates spiritual growth. In fact, it is the unconditional aspect of your commitment that makes this the highest path. It's so simple. You just have to decide whether or not you will break your vow. When everything is going well, it's easy to be happy. But the moment something difficult happens, it's not so easy. You tend to find yourself saying, but I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't think I missed my flight. I didn't think Sally would show up at the party wearing the same dress that I had on. And I didn't think that somebody would dent my brand new car 1 hour after I got it. And are you really willing to break your vow of happiness because these events took place? Billions of things could happen that you haven't even thought of yet. The question is not whether they will happen. Things are going to happen. The real question is whether you want to be happy regardless of what happens. The purpose of your life is to enjoy and learn from your experiences. You were not put on earth to suffer. You're not helping anybody by being miserable. Regardless of your philosophical beliefs, the fact remains that you were born and you are going to die. During the time in between, you get to choose whether or not you want to enjoy the experience. Events don't determine whether or not you're going to be happy. They're just events. You determine whether or not you're going to be happy. You can be happy just to be alive. You can be happy having all these things happen to you and then be happy to die. If you can live this way, your heart will be so open and your spirit will be so free that you will soar up to the heavens. This path leads you to absolute transcendence because any part of your being that would add a condition to your commitment to happiness has got to go. If you want to be happy, you have to let go of the part of you that wants to create melodrama. This is the part that thinks there's a reason not to be happy. You have to transcend the personal, and as you do, you will naturally awaken to the higher aspect of your being. In the end, enjoying life's experiences is the only rational thing to do. You're sitting on a planet spinning around in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Go ahead, take a look at reality. You're floating in an empty space in a universe that goes on forever. If you have to be here, at least be happy and enjoy the experience. You're going to die anyway. Things are going to happen anyway. Why shouldn't you be happy? You gain nothing by being bothered by life's events. It doesn't change the world. You just suffer. There's always going to be something that can bother you if you let it. This choice to enjoy life will lead you through your spiritual journey. In truth, it is itself a spiritual teacher. Committing yourself to unconditional happiness will teach you every single thing there is to learn about yourself, about others, and about the nature of life. You will learn all about your mind, your heart, and your will. But you have to mean it when you say that you'll be happy for the rest of your life. Every time a part of you begins to get happy, let it go. Every time a part of you begins to get unhappy, let it go. Work with it. Use affirmations or do whatever you need to do to stay open. If you are committed, nothing can stop you. No matter what happens, you can choose to enjoy the experience. If they starve you and put you in solitary confinement, just have fun being like Gandhi. No matter what happens, just enjoy the life that comes to you. As difficult as that sounds, what's the benefit of not doing it? If you're totally innocent and they lock you up, you might as well have fun. What good does it do not to have fun? It doesn't change anything. In the end, if you stay happy, you win. Make that your game and just stay happy no matter what. The key to staying happy is really very simple. Begin by understanding your inner energies. If you look inside, you will see that when you're happy, your heart feels open and the energy rushes up inside of you. When you aren't happy, your heart feels closed and no energy comes up inside. So to stay happy, just don't close your heart. No matter what happens, even if your wife leaves you or your husband dies, you don't close. There is no rule that says you have to close. Just tell yourself that no matter what happens, you're not going to close. You really do have that choice. When you start to close, just question if you're really willing to give up your happiness. You should examine what it is inside of you that believes there's some benefit to closing. The slightest thing happens to you and you give away your happiness. You were having a great day until someone cut you off on your way to work. It got you really upset and you stayed that way the rest of the day. Why? Dare to ask yourself that question. What good came from letting it ruin your day? There was no benefit. If somebody cuts you off, let go and stay open. If you really want to, you can. If you take on this path of unconditional happiness, you will go through all of the various stages of yoga. You'll have to stay conscious, centered, and committed at all times. You will have to stay one-pointed on your commitment to remain open and receptive to life. But nobody said that you can't do this. Staying open is what the great saints and masters taught. They taught that God is joy, God is ecstasy, and God is love. If you remain open enough, waves of uplifting energy will fill your heart. Spiritual practices are not an end in themselves. They bear fruit when you become deep enough to remain open. If you learn to stay open at all times, great things will happen to you. You simply have to learn not to close. The key is to learn to keep your mind disciplined enough so that it doesn't trick you into thinking that this time it's worth closing. If you slip, get back up. The minute you slip, the minute you open your mouth, the minute you start to close and defend yourself, get back up. Just pick yourself up and affirm inwardly that you don't want to close, no matter what happens. Affirm that all you want is to be at peace and to appreciate life. You don't want your happiness to be conditional upon the behavior of other people. It's bad enough that your happiness is conditional upon your own behavior. When you start making it conditional upon other people's behavior, you're in serious trouble. Things are going to happen to you, and you're going to feel the tendency to close. But you have the choice to either go with it or let it go. Your mind will tell you that it's not reasonable to stay open when these things happen. But you have limited time left in your life. And what's really not reasonable is to not enjoy life. If you have trouble remembering that, then meditate. Meditation strengthens your center of consciousness so that you're always aware enough to not allow your heart to close. You remain open by simply letting go and releasing the tendency to close. You just relax your heart when it starts to tighten. You don't have to be outwardly glowing all the time. You're just joyful inside. Instead of complaining, you're just having fun with the different situations that unfold. Unconditional happiness is a very high path and a very high technique because it solves everything. You could learn yoga techniques such as meditation and postures, but what do you do with the rest of your life? The technique of unconditional happiness is ideal because what you're doing with the rest of your life is already defined. You're letting go of yourself so that you can remain happy. As far as your spirituality goes, you're going to grow very rapidly. A person who actually does this every moment of every day is going to notice the cleansing of their heart. This is because they're not getting involved in the stuff that comes up. They're also going to notice the purification of their mind because they are getting involved in the mind. They're not getting involved in the mind's melodrama. Their Shakti spirit is going to awaken even if they know nothing about Shakti. They will come to know a happiness that is beyond human understanding. This path solves daily life and it solves spiritual life. The greatest gift one can give to God is to be pleased with his creation. Do you think God likes to be around people that are happy or people that are miserable? It's not hard to tell. Just think about it by imagining that you're God. You created the heavens and earth so that you can play and experience yourself. And now you're dropping down to check on your humans. So God asked the first human he sees, how are you doing? The human says, what do you mean, how am I doing? Well, don't you like it here? No, I don't like it here. Why not? What's wrong? That tree is bent in 5 places. I want it to be straight. This person went out with somebody else, and that person ran up $100 phone bill. This person has a nicer car than mine, and that person dresses funny. It's just terrible. Plus, my nose is too big, my ears are too small, my toes are weird. I'm not happy with it. I don't like it, any of it. So God says, well, how about the animals? The animals, the ants and mosquitoes bite you. It's a terrible thing. I can't go out at night because there are all these animals out there. They owl and poop all over the place, and I just don't like it. Do you think God likes listening to this? He says. What do you think? I'm a complaint department? Then he goes and visits somebody else, and again he asks, how are you doing? The person says, I'm ecstatic. God says, wow, well, how do you like things? They're beautiful. Everything I look at just creates waves of joy inside me. I look at that bent tree and it just blows me away. The ant comes and bites me, and it's just so amazing that a tiny ant could be brave enough to bite a giant like me. Now you guess who God wants to hang out with? One of the ancient names for God in the yogic tradition is Sat Chit Ananda, eternal conscious bliss. God is ecstasy. God is as high as it gets. If you want to be close to God, learn to be joyful. If you remain spontaneously happy and centered, no matter what happens, you will find God. That's the amazing part. Yes, you will find happiness, but that's nothing compared to what you're really going to find. Once you have passed through trial by fire, and you are thoroughly convinced that you will let go no matter what, then the veils of the human mind and heart will fall away. You will stand face to face with what is beyond you because there's no longer a need for you. When you are done playing with the temporal and finite, You will open to the eternal and infinite. Then the word happiness can't describe your state. That's where words like ecstasy, bliss, liberation, nirvana, and freedom comes in. The joy becomes overwhelming and your cup runneth over. This is a beautiful path. Be happy. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Diane. Thank you very much. And before I start, I would like to show everyone where I am. I would like everyone to see this. I am currently at the retreat house, Awakening Together in La Veta, Colorado. And I just spent the week doing the Diane retreat that was presented by Anne and Cindy. And I want to start with a gift that I received this morning. I'm going to start by okay, it disappeared. So I'm not starting with that. Okay, but basically it was a poem by Rumi. And basically what it was saying was that my mind went insane last night, which was actually the truth of my experience. I woke up in the middle of the night, was having a degree of anxiety about this morning, because this is really something that's brand new to me. And as I laid there with myself, I just welcomed the anxiety that I was feeling. And as I stayed breathing with it, what I recognized was that the mind was believing thoughts. And I kind of chuckled at that because I didn't notice that I had been playing these thoughts in my mind for the better part of 2 or 3 weeks now. And in the middle of the night, it just came into my awareness that you're just believing thoughts. And what this poem from Rumi said is that love came. And so how love came to me in the middle of the night was with the word trust. And the moment the word trust dropped in, everything within became silent. And I just rested in the silence and felt the great gratitude of a benevolence that is so kind, so loving, that it comes to me in so many ways. And all I need to do is recognize it and be aware that this has come to me to help heal my mind. This week was very much about healing the mind. And it was a very profound week for me. First thing that I want to share, because I really felt like this all tied together. So I want to read you just another quote from The Way of the Heart. And it's in lesson 3. And it says, if you ever want to come home, you're going to have to become very, very divinely selfish. You're going to have to become so selfish that you will not tolerate judgment in yourself of anyone or anything, because you will begin to recognize that every little act catapults you to the other side of the universe from where you want to be. Yeshua goes on to say, I learned along the path that ultimately I could give nothing to anyone without first receiving it for myself. I became what you might call divinely selfish. And that is, I utilize the body, the mind, the emotions, and every experience and every opportunity to teach myself to choose only with the Holy Spirit. And that's really what the reading this morning on unconditional happiness is about, is learning to use every experience, every opportunity that is given me to teach myself to choose only love, choose only happiness. That's what I felt that we were doing this week and what we were learning how to do this week. What dropped in when I read that quote from The Way of the Heart is that this is really about letting go of self-judgment. And one of the ways that we were working to achieve that was first by dropping in an intention. And one of the things that Regina has spoken so frequently of over these many years is the purpose of intention, and allowing that intention to become a single pointed focus. So the intention that we were holding this week is that I want a direct and conscious experience of the truth of what I am right now. Not later, but right now. And every time I drop that intention into my heart, it felt as if initially a match was lit that began to flame this desire within my heart. And the more I dropped the intention in, the more fuel was being added to that flame, so that it began to burn with such an intensity that it became a single pointed focus. And this longing, this deep longing to be the truth of what I am, arose as a result of continually dropping that intention in. And I say that and share that as a reminder. And the reminder is for myself as well as everyone else, that there is such a deep value of having a genuine inspiration that does exactly what I felt this week, that fuels that flame within your heart to only want to know the truth of what you are right now. The other thing that was really evident to me was the purpose of purification. Okay, because the intention is dropped in. Want to know the truth of who I am. I want a direct experience of who I am right now. And up pops the doubts, the fears, the I am bad belief, whatever is there in the mind, that now pops up. And the reason why that is popping up is because it's come in order for me to recognize that this is exactly what is keeping me from experiencing my true nature in this moment. And the value of seeing that is that once I see that, then I can let it go. But until I see that, that's what's running me, and that's what's keeping me from having a direct experience. And it's so funny for me to watch how tricky the mind is. So I had this wonderful week of like letting go of the mind. Everything that was coming up was being spoken and released, right? And now the retreat is over, and send a message home, just checking in with everybody. How's everyone doing? Because we were in silence. And I get a message back from my husband saying, yeah, when you get a chance, give me a call. There's some things that I want to talk with you about. And I knew when I left home that one of the things that we're looking at is needing to replace the roof on our house. So what I watched me wanting to avoid calling him. I watched me having this thought like, I don't really want to deal with this. I watched the mind already deciding how it was going to feel depending on what it was that he said to me when I called him. And I just marveled at how the mind was already making decisions before I even picked up the phone to call him of what my experience was going to be. And as soon as I saw that going on within the mind, I dropped all that because I immediately recognized the avoidance was a block. The deciding how I was going to feel was a block to the awareness of my true nature in this moment. And that's the kind of seeing that I feel that we're being invited into moment by moment. That's what I feel like Michael Singer was talking about in Unconditional Happiness, is being aware of all the tiny little ways that my mind wants to tell me I cannot know the truth of what I am in this moment. I cannot be happy in this moment. And recognizing it for what it is. And all of it is a lie. But I have to see it and I have to let it go in order to discover that it's a lie. The other thing that was just so profoundly helpful to me this week that really, again, dropped in very deeply is this sense of what is seeking me. See, I think I'm the seeker. And there is a truth to that, but there's also something seeking me. And it is the what that is seeking me that is calling me deeper and deeper into the willingness to surrender what is blocking me from knowing it. And when I feel that something seeking me, I am filled with a sense of a profound love that is calling me and wants me to know it and be it and express it and live it. I also recognize this week, I grew up Catholic. And so I grew up with this idea that Jesus was the special chosen one. But what dropped in for me this week is that Jesus was an ordinary man, just like me, just like you. And what made him extraordinary was that he focused his attention. He became devoted to one thing and one thing only. And it was that devotion and that willingness that made all the difference. And by recognizing that he is the same as me, or I am the same as him, basically tells me that if I follow what he did, if I commit myself to that one pointed focus of seeing the unchangeable within me, of dropping back into that inner focus over and over and over again, that I too can come to know what he knows. Throughout the course of the week, there were definitely moments of touching into true nature. And I would describe true nature as sometimes it felt open and neutral. And I recognize that within that open and neutral space or beingness, that absolutely everything was acceptable. But the other thing that I felt that was just so profound for me was that true nature is incapable of judgment. And I recognize again this idea in my mind that I think I am the one that needs to stop judging. And there is truth to that, of letting judgments go. But what dropped in more deeply for me was that I want to know the nature that is incapable of judgment. That's what I really want to know. I want to let go of the mind completely and be that nature that is incapable of judging. And I want to tell you what an incredible relief experiencing that for even the few moments that I felt it were. And just imagining what it would be like to walk in this world and be purely incapable of judging. And that's what I want with my whole heart. I'll be honest with you, Sina, I have no idea where I am on time. So, good. So what grew this week was a much greater willingness to surrender. A much greater willingness to let go of this separate identity self. And a powerful, powerful retreat that was brilliantly led by Anne and Cindy. Absolutely brilliantly led. And through their guidance, I just was able to come to see that it truly is a possibility to transcend this personal self. And so I feel like that's my message for this morning. And I would like to end my message with a poem. This is a poem I had hanging up at my desk. And it always spoke to me. And it felt very fitting. The poem is called So Much Happiness by Naomi Shihab Nye. It is difficult to know what to do with so much happiness. With sadness, there is something to rub against, a wound to tend with lotion and cloth. When the world falls in around you, you have pieces to pick up, something to hold in your hands, like ticket stubs or change, but happiness floats. It doesn't need you to hold it down. It doesn't need anything. Happiness lands on the roof of the next house, singing, and disappears when it wants to. And you are happy either way. Even the fact that you once lived in a peaceful treehouse and now live over a quarry of noise and dust cannot make you unhappy. Everything has its own life. It too could wake up filled with possibilities of coffee cake and rich peaches, and love even the floor that needs to be swept, and the soiled linens and scratched records. Since there is no place large enough to contain so much happiness, you shrug, you raise your hands and let it flow out of you into everything you touch. You are not responsible. You take no credit, as the night sky takes no credit for the moon, but continues to hold it and share it, and in that way be known. For our contemplation, Sina, would you please play John Lennon's Fool on the Hill? Thank you, Sina. That song came up during the week as we were in our contemplation, and it just felt very appropriate to play today. Friends, if you would like to donate to Awakening Together, you may do so by clicking on the link that Sina has posted on the board, or by using the QR code in the sanctuary. And at this time, I invite anyone who would like to share to please do so. Cindy, please.
That is, if I can speak without crying. Thank you. I'm going to do my best to speak without crying, but thank you may be all I have. I sat in stillness for most of what you shared, which was gorgeous. And at one point during the week, you shared with me, your awakening experience with Regina in Costa Rica. And I felt it then, your description, but through most of what you shared, or much of what you shared today, it was almost like you invited me into that experience that you told me about. And I felt it. I felt the openingness. I felt the sense that regardless of what might be going on in here, all was like more than beautifully expressed. And the clarity with which you spoke and the presence from which it came from is something that will just bless me forever. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, my friend.
Love us.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to share? Peter, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michele. Thank you so much. I really have to cry about it. And what especially hangs is actually this, that you say, I cannot judge. That's what you are, my real nature. And this is actually so, we do our best to do our best. But it is what I am cannot judge. What I am cannot not love. And that is so relief. So I want to thank you. This is what hanging actually, what I am cannot judge. And that is so much better place than trying, because that's not working. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for everything. And I feel so much what spoke through you and where you actually choosing for. And that's a help for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate it. Beverly, please.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I really, really enjoyed your homily. And Justin, also what Peter was saying just now, what I see in myself or what's being shown to me is where there was this wanting to be kind of like what I already am, or wanting to know my own nature. Something you mentioned about the, the I am bad belief, being very subtle. When I would have an emotional reaction, I would be focusing on what happened rather than focusing on really what my judgments were about myself, about what happened. And so I could see myself really being harsh with myself or being mean to myself. And where I thought the correction was to not do that anymore, really the correction was the compassion and the love that I needed to have for myself. And that really was the lesson, because as the compassion and the love increased, my true nature is able to come forth without me trying to make it happen. And so I found that just that love and that compassion for the aftermath of what was happening was where the healing was, not in what happened. And so, your homily was just a reminder of that and just touched my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for speaking that forth with such clarity, Beverly. Jeff, please.
Hey,
Okay.
Michele. So beautiful. I was just down in La Vita very briefly, and I met you and a few others, but briefly and deeply. And it was just so beautiful connecting there. And what I thought was particularly humorous in a Jesus sort of way was when you started your talk and you were looking for something and you just said it disappeared. And it felt like in that moment, Spirit just had you go inside and speak from your own heart, which was just beautiful. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. May the rest of this day be a blessed day, and may you stay in remembrance of your own intention and the truth of who you are. And Sina, would you please play our closing song, which is Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.